You're listening to episode 58 of Burning Brightly, How Honoring the Sabbath Changes Everything. This is Burning Brightly, a podcast for Christian moms who are feeling called to build a business and share their light with the world. I'm Bonnie Wiscombe, a life coach, mom, and entrepreneur, and I'm honored to be your guide as you face this business building adventure full of highs, lows, and everything in between. This is where we help each other find the courage to shine. Hello, my friends. Welcome back. I have an episode today that I've been thinking about for a long time. And for some of you, this might not come as any surprise why we're talking about the Sabbath day today. For some of you, you might be like, what? I don't get it. And I don't know why it's important, but I hope that you will have a different perspective by the end of this episode, because I really think that acknowledging and honoring one day out of the week for God is really, really powerful, and how it has changed a lot for me in my business and my personal life. So if you're familiar with the Old Testament, you know about the 10 Commandments. And one of those commandments is to honor the Sabbath day. And how most Bible believers translate this looks something like choosing a day of the week to give back to God. Kind of like many of us tithe our money, right? 10% of our money goes back to God and His church and building up His kingdom. A portion of our days, our time, our energy also goes back to Him. So there's a scripture in Mosiah that clarifies it a little bit more, and I wanted to read it because I think it's important. Mosiah 13:16-18 says, "But remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the seventh day, the Sabbath of the Lord thy God, thou shalt not do any work." So in Exodus, it talks a little bit more about this, but it frankly says that anyone who breaks this law shall be put to death. Thankfully, we're not going for that. We're not following the law of Moses. That's not a thing nowadays. But I still think it's really, really important that we stop and take a look at how our time and energy is being spent on the Sabbath day. Another thing it says in Exodus is that the children of Israel are commanded to keep it holy as a sign of covenant. So a covenant is this special sacred agreement we have, or a commitment between two parties, specifically between God and man. So I want to be a promise keeper with God. I want to be known as someone who enters into these sacred covenants and commitments with God and honors them. So if I'm going to be known as a covenant maker and keeper with God, then I need to take a look at how I spend my time and energy on the Sabbath day. I personally acknowledge that I could use a lot more of God's help and support in my life. Can't we all? I would really like His direction in everything I do. I would love His blessings. I acknowledge that God is the most powerful being in the universe. Ergo, He has the power to change anything in my life. And one way that I can ensure that more blessings come into my life is by keeping this commitment. So, what does keeping the Sabbath holy, or setting it apart from the other things that you have going on in your life, look like? What does it look like? Well, this is a very personal decision. And frankly, I believe that God doesn't want us to be commanded in all things. He doesn't want us to have to be like, do it this way and then do it this way and micromanage us, right? He wants us to be managers of our own selves, our own lives, our own families, our own homes, and to make some really significant decisions about how to spend our Sabbath day. I personally have changed my relationship with the Sabbath over the years as I've changed my relationship with God. It seems like as I get closer to God, I make more and more what some might even call drastic decisions in regards to my Sabbath day, because I want to show God that I am very, very serious about this commitment. And one of these things that I've chosen to do is to not work on my business on Sunday. This started actually when I was a kid. I made a decision with the encouragement of my parents that I wouldn't work at a job on Sunday. That is our Sabbath day. And I decided it was going to be for church, for family time, for scripture study, for drawing closer to God. And I wasn't going to take shifts at my local Taco Bell, which was my first job. Instead, I was going to stay home and make sure that that day was sacred and special. And it wasn't always easy. I mean, with an entry-level job, you're kind of required to be the grunt and required to take whatever shifts they give you. But I managed to always have a job that allowed me to take Sundays off. If only my 16-year-old self would know how much more challenging it would be to have a business that I am solely in charge of and that I can work on anytime, day or night. Significantly more difficult to manage myself so that I'm not leaving projects for Sunday, or so that I'm not doing it just because I'm bored that day, or just because I have a project I really, really want to work on. It has taken some significant self-discipline to honor that day in the way that I have chosen to honor it. In college, another one of those decisions for me was to not study on Sunday. Again, not always easy, especially when you're a procrastinator and you like to put off your projects till the night before Monday. But I decided that I was going to study up until Saturday night and then take Sunday off. So, why is this difficult? Well, you probably know if you own a business, business takes up so much of my mind. It takes up more mind space than it will ever take up real estate. I could buy factories and warehouses the world over and it would never take up as much space in the world as it takes up in my brain. It's constantly churning in there, always thinking of new ideas, always thinking creatively, always brainstorming, always troubleshooting. And so it requires some discipline to keep my brain from constantly focusing on it. My brain is the type that likes to think of productive things all the time. And so I'll be sitting there playing toys with my kid and my brain will be a million miles away. That's also a challenge for me because I want to be present mentally for my kids as well. But honoring God by giving him a day back, even inside my mind, has been a really, really eye-opening experience because I'm showing him I'm not just going to not work on my business. I'm going to try to not even brainstorm and think about it all the time because I want this day to be God's. I want him to have a full day where he can talk to me, where he can give me inspiration, where I can ask questions and meditate and ponder about them and get responses because my brain isn't so busy working on something that doesn't have much to do with God or has less to do with him than what he thinks is important for me. One reason it's difficult is because my brain is constantly chewing on things for business. So taking that active step to eliminate brain chatter around my business on Sundays is difficult. But also balancing family and work is also a struggle. I have a large family, I have a home, I have a large yard, I have, obligations at church and in my community. Balancing all that with my business is hard enough. And then eliminating an entire day out of the week to not work on my business means that my time is even shorter. And frankly, over the years, I've also decided not to work on Saturdays for the most part because I want to give those to my household and to my family. And so my business stays within those 5 days a week. Some people would argue, no, if you're really dedicated to your business, you're going to take up more time. But what I've noticed is that as I give my business more freedom, it takes more from me. Kind of like you give it an inch, it takes a mile. It's one of those things that will just wrap its little tentacles around every corner of your life. If you don't have boundaries, it will take over your life. And I don't think that's healthy at all. There's a popular video snippet that's going around on Instagram right now where a guy is talking about how he works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on his business, never rests, never has vacations. And I just think that is terrible. And I hope this is a joke. I hope no one ever dedicates their entire life to their business because what a shallow life that is. As wonderful as our businesses are and as impactful as we hope they become, it should never be everything in your life. There should always be time for God, for your family, for your friends, and for your own relaxation. Another reason it's difficult to do this, to keep this Sabbath day special in regards to your business and not working on your business on it, is that for our family, it's actually pretty easy for me to slip into business mode because we've eliminated a lot of other things that we do on the Sabbath. We mostly stay home and we study gospel and we are with our families and it's a pretty chill day and my brain runs at like 1,000 miles a minute. And so it wants something to chew on. It wants something to fix and think through and troubleshoot. And it looks to my business to do that. And so I have to actively rein it back in. Nope. We're thinking about Jesus today. Nope. We are studying this scripture today. Nope. We are spending time with the family and developing those relationships today. Okay. Now, those are a handful of challenges for keeping the Sabbath day holy in regards to your business, but I'm going to give you some reasons why it's actually easy. And this is what I keep coming back to when it becomes challenging. The amount of rest I feel when I honor that Sabbath day is incredible. Like I said, I am a mile a minute type of person. I go really fast. I'm very productive. I'm very competent. So to stop and slow down and take a minute to breathe gives me so much peace. And it helps me actually be more productive and useful on other days. Just like we know, I was talking about in the last episode about our body, exercise experts say that to actually build muscle and to get better at training and exercising, we have to rest, that our rest is as equally important as our exercise. But do we allow our brains that rest? Do we allow our spirits to rest, right? Do we give rest to all facets of our body and mind or just the body itself? So I feel so ready to jump back into my business on Monday because I've been given an entire day to not think about it, to not chew on it, to not stew about decisions. I think sometimes our businesses end up in the whole paralysis by analysis stage of things because we overthink everything. And especially if you're a solopreneur and you don't have anybody to bounce ideas off of, then you can overanalyze yourself until you're blue in the face. Giving yourself a day off is huge for that rest and that reset, and can sometimes help you be so much more productive on Monday. Frankly, this is also, I think, where my subconscious makes connections, just like our brain makes connections when we sleep. Your business brain can do that when you stop thinking about it for a while. Just let it go. Give yourself a day where you don't make it a priority and see what happens. I believe that my business has the best chance at success if I take regular breaks for it, just like anything else, just like my family. I love my kids and I love my family, but if I don't take a break from them, I go a little bit crazy, and my love for them tends to decrease a little bit because I don't have any break to rest, recover, and then get back in tune with who I want to be. What's been interesting for me as I've implemented this is how many new ideas and energy for those ideas I have on Monday. A lot of people stress out on Mondays because they're like, oh, back to the grind. But I love my business so much that it's actually more of a challenge to let go of it for a day. And I get so much more excited to dive back in on Monday. If I work every single day of the week, it just becomes one eternal circle, like a hamster wheel that I cannot get off. And it becomes very much not enjoyable and not something I look forward to. I've seen a lot more joy in my business because of this. I have also seen God's hand in my business more and more. I believe that because I'm giving him some of my time and energy back, he is more inclined to bless me and bless my business. And I kind of dedicate my business to him by saying, I'm going to work 5 or 6 days a week and no more. And that 7th day is yours. And then he pours blessings out on my business. I really believe that. I've had so much inspiration. I will sit down and go to brainstorm ideas for content or projects or offers or whatever I want to put out into the world, and they just flow. And I really believe that this is directly in proportion to how much time I give back to God. And then finally, honoring the Sabbath day in regards to my business is easy because I get to grow spiritually. So every single day I build my tech knowledge, my business knowledge, my self-improvement knowledge, right? Because I'm working on my coaching skills and all these other things. But Sunday is dedicated to my soul, to my spirit only. I'm not trying to find the best way to be a coach. I'm not trying to find the best way to be a marketing expert. I'm not trying to find the best way to have good quality audio on my podcast. I am only focusing on my connection with God. And if you believe that you have a spirit that was created by God and needs to be in tune with him, then you can acknowledge how important it is to exercise this spirit and make it stronger. I have an entire day once a week to think, study, pray about spiritual things, draw closer to God, and ask him what he wants from me. And I think that's really, really powerful. So let me back up for a second and talk about Saturdays really quickly. Because I made this move early on in my business to not work on Sundays, I very quickly acknowledged that Saturdays couldn't be the default day to do all the other things I want to do over the weekend on my business. Like I said, your business can kind of be like this primordial ooze that just leaks into every facet of your life if you don't have some very firm boundaries. And so it was starting to leak into a lot of Saturday. And what I acknowledged then is that, okay, I had my day for spiritual stuff, but I didn't have a day for household stuff because there's really only so much you can do when you are parenting full time and working on your business Monday through Friday. So I have also largely taken most Saturdays off, like I mentioned. And what I do with those days is we do fun things with the kids that we don't normally do on Sunday, like go to the trampoline park or to the public pool or have a party with friends. Things that needed to be done around the house were falling through the cracks when I was working on Saturday. So Saturday is largely my household day. It's when I organize closets. It's when I maybe do a little bit more deep cleaning, major errands or other projects that I've been wanting to get to for a while. And also just relaxing and enjoying life. Saturday is the day that I don't feel any guilt if I sit down with a book and read it for 3 hours. And it feels amazing to schedule that relaxation time because everyone needs it. And when you're the type of person that's very rewarded by productivity, that can be difficult to do. But sometimes I put it in my calendar, read my novel 3 to 5 p.m. and I don't let anything interrupt me. It's very, very powerful. So what I'm saying is, as you start honoring the Sabbath, I think you're going to see how those boundaries expand into other parts of your life and you acknowledge, you know what, I would actually like to have Fridays back. So I'm going to work Monday through Thursday. You might have to increase your hours. You might have to hire some help, but whatever it takes, make sure that you are keeping healthy boundaries for all aspects of your life, your physical health, your spiritual health, your emotional health, your relationships, all of it. So here are a few other ideas of things that I have eliminated on Sunday that help me stay close to God, just in case this concept is new to you and you want to incorporate it in some way in your own life. So we actually have minimal friend and party time. Okay, so sometimes we will have a family get together, or we will invite one or two families over from church or from the neighborhood just to connect with them. But we try to keep them pretty chill. We don't have big, loud, wild parties. We don't have pool parties. We just have like maybe a quiet dinner with friends, because that quieter atmosphere kind of helps to keep God's spirit around our home, is how I feel about it. We like to connect with relatives who live far. So we might have a Zoom call or a FaceTime call with somebody that we haven't seen in a while, maybe aunts and uncles or cousins that we want to connect with. We visit neighbors or friends, especially those who might be suffering or need support. We take time to do journaling. I love to journal on Sunday because I just don't really make time for it other days, especially journaling ways that I have seen God's hand in my life. That's my favorite thing to write about. We set this expectation for slowness on the Sabbath. Every other day of the week is go, 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 go. We have something scheduled all the time, somebody's extracurricular or somebody's school project or somebody's play date. And on Sunday, we just don't. We say no to most things. And it's just a very slow spiritual day. I want to start making time for meditation. This is something I've wanted to put in my calendar for a long time and just haven't made time for it. We currently make time for nature. Well, not currently because it's 110 degrees here still, but when the weather cools off, we will go on walks together or just sit on the rocking chairs outside, acknowledging just how miraculous God's earth is. And we also don't shop on Sunday. So we don't go to stores, we don't fill up on gas, and we try not to shop online. Of course, that's always a temptation because it's right there in your hand. But we try to allow others to honor their Sabbath day as well. And we do that by not going to stores where someone would have to work. We also keep our entertainment pretty minimal on Sundays, unless it's something gospel centered. So very often I'll let my kids watch some animated Bible story, or we'll watch maybe a video about what we're studying in church that comes up on YouTube. So we try to keep it gospel centered so that our family is reminded that this is God's day. Now, after I've shared all that with you, let me just say there is no right way. I don't believe that. I believe that you and your family can create the perfect Sabbath day with God's input. So if this is something that's tugging on your heart and you want to do better, check in with him and just say, hey, this is what I'm feeling. What would you have me do? Like, how can this Sabbath day look different from my other days? How can I improve it? How can I make changes so I feel better connected to you and so that I can start my next week fresh, rejuvenated, and feeling like I am in a good place in regards to our relationship? And I promise God will tell you. You will hear whisperings and nudgings, and you will know what the first baby steps are that you can do. A couple of questions you can ask yourself is, where can I allow more space for God on the Sabbath? Where can I let go of some more self-centered pursuits? So just an example is I really like to organize. And if I don't have the time I needed to organize all the things on Saturday, sometimes I'll think, well, I'll just do it on Sunday. But it is just kind of a self-centered pursuit. It's something that makes me feel better, but doesn't necessarily connect me to God. Although one could argue that, cleanliness is next to godliness. So that is one thing that I have tried to let go of so that I am better able to connect with what God wants me to do. I am reminded when I think about the Sabbath day of Daniel. In the book of Daniel, chapter 1, he refused to eat the king's meat and instead ate grains and just drank water. And people thought he was kind of crazy. Like, you got to do what the king says. The king says eat his meat, and here's some really good meat. Just eat it. And he knew that God's law was to eat the grains and drink the water instead of the wine. It didn't make sense according to the understanding of the day. The people, the experts were like, you're going to get in trouble. And also, meat is good for you. What's your problem? But he knew better. So he didn't do what the king asked, even though his life was at risk, because he trusted God. And he ended up experiencing greater health because he lived by God's law and actually made an impact on the world around him because of that example. That is one way that I think God's covenant daughters can really be an example for good in the world, by reminding others just how important the Sabbath is, that it's not just another day to go shopping. It's not just another day to sleep all day. It's not just another day to catch up on things that you didn't get done on Saturday, but it is a special day for God. How can we connect with him? How can we strengthen our spirit? And how can we better honor this day that he has asked to be his? Again, if you don't know where to start, maybe it's just time to ask God and listen for an answer. But I promise it will change your life. Be watching for those opportunities to honor your Sabbath and let me know how it goes. I would love to hear it. All right. Thanks for listening. Are you ready to start or grow your dream business? click the link in the show notes to download the free starter guide to building a business or to schedule a free coaching call with me. And if you loved this episode, don't forget to leave a review and share it with a friend who might be feeling the call to burn a little brighter.